hopefully we do have some positive signs with all these individuals, leading to the belief that we will have additional stimulus moving forward. A few other things that may or may not matter to you, but if you're on ACA, if you're on some of the state exchanges for the ACA, Affordable Care Act insurance, there will hopefully be some more premium subsidies to help you out with those payments. Reinstating paid sick and family leave, being more forward with payments and regarding individuals and employees that have to take time off related to COVID sickness, so more paid leave, as well as the government issuing more payments to corporations to pay for the paid leave of their employees. As you've may have also heard, part of this American Rescue Plan is an increase in the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Again, this will have to go through the political process. It's a bit to be determined if the Democrats can push this through under budget reconciliation without much, if any, Republican support. We'll see. The political process will happen. You know, we know the opposite of progress is Congress, so we'll see. But this is what the plan is right now. We'll see what it looks like in the next few weeks as Congress talks about it. Hopefully it looks a lot like what we have here. It'll bode well for our economy and all of our citizens. Comments on student loan relief. I could probably remove the word tentative out here because Biden has very recently said, actually signed an executive order granting continued temporary relief for student loans. We have had student loan relief in the form of pausing federal student loan payments, stopping accrual of interest. Interest rates are set at 0 for federal loans, and halting the collection of defaulted student loans since early 2020. That will likely be in place through at least September 30th, 2021. So good news if you have student loans or are current students, if you have a student in college and they are unsubsidized loans, they will not be accruing interest over this time period. Word of caution, however, if you are somebody who has gone to college a little bit ago, 10 years or so ago, and still have student loan payments, your loans may or may not qualify depending on what type of loan they are. I have some details down here at the bottom for you to look into if you think that you qualify, or if you think you don't qualify for student loan relief given the nature of your loans. I'm happy to chat about that more in detail. But if you went to college within the past 10 years, you very likely have loans that qualify for student loan relief programs. Again, this is only federal public loans. Private loans are a completely different ballgame. So this is just federal loans, but great to hear some continued relief moving forward. Oops. I went the wrong way. Continue on with student loans. If you've watched, if you've listened to now President Biden speak the past year or so, he's been very adamant about doing more for student loans. The current thinking in place is that he's going to be offering $10,000 of federal student loan debt relief, likely for certain individuals. Hopefully this covers at least those that work for the public sector, state, local municipality, or federal government, as well as not-for-profit organizations. Whether this is $10,000 for everybody, regardless of employment status, is a bit to be determined, but hopefully there's some momentum here with other Democratic support related to continued student loan relief. There's also talk about giving a free pass to people making under $25,000 a year for public college tuition, forgiving federal loans after 20 years. Currently, if you are on an income-based repayment program, your loans will be forgiven at the end of 20 to 25 years. This is just making those programs more advantageous to the borrower. But we'll see. Some cautions on these, however, as I have listed down here at the bottom. Biden has stated that he does not plan on using executive order for these student loan relief programs that I have listed on this page. So as they work through the political process, they're unlikely to be what you see here, but we'll see. These are the ones that are listed on this page are not part of the stimulus bill that Biden is currently proposing, the big multiple trillion-dollar proposal. So these are going to be separate proposals that he will have, which won't take effect anytime soon. And other Democrats have called for increased loan amounts. Elizabeth Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. I combined Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders here. Elizabeth Warren has come out and said that she's in favor of an increased amount other than $10,000 student loan forgiveness. Biden isn't quite at that stage yet. And then we have the other side of the aisle where Republicans have been pretty vocal about not supporting much at all student loan forgiveness. So we'll see. But these are the plans in place now. We have the new president. These are what he said that he wants to do. We'll see what happens. Moving forward. So moving on a little bit from all of those current events to some financial year-end considerations. So anytime I chat with people about year-end planning, whether it be tax planning, investment planning, so year-end, start of the new year, there's some questions that I want them to think about. So hopefully these questions will encourage you or force you to consider your own personal finances and if you should make any changes. Are you able to max out your retirement accounts? So keep in mind that if you are contributing to IRAs, you have until the tax deadline, April 15th, to make contributions for your IRAs for the prior year. So do keep that in mind. We still have some time to make 2020 IRA contributions. Have you used all of your FSA money? Remember that the FSA are health savings accounts that you lose at the end of that year. We do have a 2.5-month extension to use that money, and hopefully with this Biden stimulus package, we will expand or extend the time that you can use prior year money in the FSA. But do remember that you lose FSA money at the end of the year if you don't use it, so it's a lose it or use it situation. And if you're saving in the HSA, have you maxed that out yet? Again, you have until tax time to do that. Have you explored all the tax adjustments, deductions, and credits? The IRS is going to start accepting tax returns in mid-February, about a month from now. So it's tax time for sure. Is there anything that you can do to ensure that you're taking advantage of all those adjustments, deductions, and credits? I'll make more comments on those here in a few minutes. 529s, and again, balance 529s with retirement if you're at the age where you're saving for both your child's education as well as retirement. General advice is to focus on your own retirement before you move on to your children's 529 plan. There's loans for college, there's no loans for retirement. So balance 529 and retirement planning if you're doing both. Have you checked your credit score recently or your credit report? Now in the age of mistaken and stolen identities and unemployment check fraud, as we're seeing a lot of over the past few months, it's important that you understand that your credit is secure. So check your credit report at least annually. You can do so annually from each of the 3 credit rating bureaus, which means you can get a free credit report every few months from a different credit bureau. Now that we're in COVID, the credit rating agencies are allowing you to obtain a free credit report weekly. So there should be no reason why you can't receive a free credit report through the federal government website, which allows you to receive one for free weekly now, but yearly on a regular basis. Your credit score is also very important. I'm not going to touch too much on that. But if you don't plan on buying a car, buying a house, renting an apartment anytime soon, you don't really need to focus on your credit score. It's only when you make those big purchases. Revisiting your investment accounts. So what fees are you paying to your investment advisor, mutual funds, ETFs, what have you? Are you happy with your situation there? Fees can really eat at a portfolio. So do revisit those on an annual basis. Revisit the decision between retirement taxable and tax-free earnings. So this is really if you're in the accumulation saving phase, Roth versus traditional savings. Do you want to have both? What's your income look like now versus what you think it will look like when you retire? Are you about retirement age and want to do some Roth conversions? Are you recently retired and want to do some Roth conversions, move it from traditional to Roth money? So consider that now. Around tax time is a great time to do those considerations. Again, debt pay down and retirement savings decisions. Are you comfortable with your debt pay down versus retirement savings? Do you want to increase one, decrease the other based on your current situation? Also a great time to think about those questions. Emergency fund, hopefully you've been one of the blessed ones who hasn't been able to or hasn't needed to access your emergency fund over the past year. Hopefully you stayed fully employed. But have you had to access your emergency fund? Do you need to increase your emergency fund? Are you worried about your job? You should be always thinking about that. Right now, given that we're in such a low interest rate environment, people have a big question of where should I hold my emergency fund? Right now you're probably receiving the same rate of return, same low interest payments, whether or not you keep your emergency fund in a checking account, a savings account, or in a money market fund. They're all paying next to nothing right now. So there's really no great place to keep an emergency fund right now. I'd say the only place that you probably shouldn't be keeping your emergency fund is in the equity of the stock market. Emergency fund is there for emergencies. You should not leave it to the swings of the stock market. So checking, savings, money market fund are great places to hold your emergency fund, even in low interest rate environments like we have now. And then a question that I always like to ask people, do your financial habits reflect your goals? Do you have a goal to retire early? Do you have a goal to save more money than you're currently saving? And then do your habits actually reflect that? Are you actually increasing your 401k contribution? Are you setting your IRA to be maxed out this year? Are you eating out less? Or hopefully we're all eating out less now, but are you spending less on entertainment to save more money? So are your financial habits reflecting your current goals? Always be considering those, and now around tax time, year end is a great time to do that. I'm going to touch on a few of these as we move forward through the presentation here. Okay, I mentioned a few minutes ago the low interest rate environment that we're in. It seems as though I've said for the past year, we're at historically low interest rates. I remember saying that in early or mid-March this past year, about a year ago, saying we're at historically low interest rates, refinance your mortgage if you haven't done so. And then interest rates fell again in the summer, and then they fell again in the fall, and they're still historically low. So interest rates continue their downward push. As I lay out here in the red orangish colored bar line is the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage. We can see that that's had a downward trend, honestly, for the past 10 years or so anyway. But now they're at historic lows. You can get a 30-year mortgage with a good credit rating now that's in the mid 2%, if not low 2%, which is insane. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of refinancing if you can as well. I happened to refinance my mortgage in March. I wish I waited to do so, but I refinanced in March and got a 2.75 interest rate on a 15-year mortgage. So it's a great time to refinance and/or buy a house if you're in the position to do so. In the blue here, I have the federal funds rate. I'm not going to spend too much time on the federal funds rate. Think about the federal funds rate as the rate at which banks borrow money at. So the goal of the Federal Reserve and the goal of the political administration is to make borrowing money cheap when they want people to have access to cheap money. So the Federal Reserve, as you can see on this chart on the lower right-hand corner, we have a federal funds rate. We have a rate that banks borrow from other banks at essentially zero, which means as it's cheaper for banks to gain access to capital, they will then pass those cost savings on to us in low mortgage rates, low auto loan rates. So it's a great time to borrow money right now if you are borrowing money. But with low interest rates on your mortgages and auto loans come low interest rates on your savings account, money market funds, all those things as well. So it's a sort of double-edged sword right now. But if you can gain access to the housing market, the auto market right now, it's a great time to jump in. not a great time to be a saver right now because we're not receiving any interest on our investments. Let's see. All right, so moving on to chat about taxes for a little bit. Hopefully none of you need the reminder that's on this slide, but regardless of who I talk to, whether they be college students, working professionals, retired individuals, it's always great to see and be reminded of, if not learn for the first time, how our tax system works. So there's three key things that I want you to focus on here is adjustments, deductions, and credits. And where these fall within this sort of gross income to taxes paid or taxes owed step are very important. So adjustments are those that are sort of above the line. They lower your AGI, your adjusted gross income. It's important to have a lower adjusted gross income for a large number of reasons that I'll lay out here in a few minutes. But those adjustments, that again, I'll lay out here in a few minutes, are things like saving for retirement in traditional retirement vehicles like an IRA or 401k, an HSA, things like that. Those are sort of above the line, top level adjustments that lower your AGI. Once your AGI is calculated, you then either take the standard deduction or itemized deductions. Thanks to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, Donald Trump administration tax bill that passed a few years ago, the vast majority of individuals now take the standard deduction instead of itemizing deductions. And I'll chat more about that in a few minutes. So after you take your deduction, standard deduction or itemized deductions, you have your taxable income, which then the federal government determines how much you owe them in federal taxes. You then determine throughout the year how much in taxes you actually do withhold, and then you think about tax credits. So tax credits are the great tool that are dollar for dollar savings. So once you figure out how much you owe the federal government in taxes every year, you then subtract off your tax credits. So these are dollar for dollar savings on the taxes that you owe the federal government. And after you determine how much you owe the federal government, subtract out how much you paid them throughout the year, subtract out your tax credits, you will then be left with either money that you still owe, or hopefully you're in a position where you will receive a tax refund. But it's very important that you understand our tax system and how different adjustments, deductions, and credits actually impact your profile. So I think this is a great slide to keep in mind and remember as you do tax planning for your own self. Okay, I don't know why I keep going backwards in slides. Okay, tax rates and tax brackets. On the left-hand side, 2020. On the right-hand side, 2021. You can see that the tax rates haven't changed, given that we are in the new year. But what has changed are the brackets and the amount that's within those brackets. They only change a little bit from year to year. So likely speaking, if you're at roughly the same salary in 2021 as you were in 2020, you're going to be paying effectively the same amount in taxes. You're still going to be taxed the same amount in the 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on, given that tax brackets only increase a little bit each year due to inflation. So really, these are roughly the same from year to year. It really takes a large tax bill by the federal government to drastically change tax rates or the brackets. The last time we had that large change was a few years ago, like I mentioned, with the Trump administration. Quick comment on adjustments here. These are to lower your AGI, student loan interest, retirement savings if they're traditional, HSA, FSA, tax loss harvesting if you're selling some equity, some stock positions, and a variety of other ones. These are the ones that reduce your gross income down to your AGI before you even consider other tax deductions and credits. So these are top of the line, above the line deductions, adjustments that you can take advantage of, and hopefully you are taking advantage of those if your goal right now is to lower your taxable income. And again, you'll get this presentation if you wish for it. So forgive me if I'm going a little bit fast through these. I'd rather give you more content than I'll be able to go over. Standard deduction. So standard deduction, given that the vast majority of individuals take the standard deduction in 2020, so when you file taxes here in a few months, if you're single, you get $12,400 of free income. That'll be the deduction that you'll be taking. Double that for married filing jointly. 2021 increases slightly. In 2021, you'll get a free $12,550 in income. Double that for married individuals. So that helps us all out, given that vast majority of us take the standard deduction. Itemized deductions, if you do have more itemized deductions than the standard deduction, then you will be itemizing. And I list a few things down here that qualify as itemized deductions. Given the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that I keep mentioning a few years ago, it capped the state and local tax deductions at $10,000. And this for high tax states like Illinois. I reside in Illinois, North Central's in Illinois, as you all know. So a lot of people in Illinois and other tax heavy states, this hurt us. I used to itemize. I no longer itemize, given that all of my state and local tax, my SALT deductions are capped at $10,000. But given that most people are taking the standard deduction these days, we'll see what the Biden administration does regarding this moving forward. But most people take the standard deduction. We get an increased standard deduction for 2021. I do not, every time I hit the down button on my keyboard, I always go back a few slides. Apologies about that. Charitable deductions. If you're blessed enough to be able to contribute to charity, there's a new deduction available for everybody. That's above the line, reduces your AGI, $300 per taxpayer, $600 for married filing jointly, that you can deduct from your taxes for contributing to charity. Because a lot of individuals moved from the itemized to the standard deduction, it removed a lot of the incentive to give to charity, because charity was an itemized deduction. So one way that the government wanted to sort of solve that issue was to provide an incentive to give to charity. That was the passage of the CARES Act in 2020 to encourage donations to charity. And I have down here at the bottom, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act reduced the number of people that itemize from 30% down to 10%. So now 90% of tax returns take the standard deduction. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. I want to keep moving forward to a few other things for you to keep in mind. Tax filing deadline Thursday, April 15th. The IRS will start receiving tax returns, start accepting tax returns February 12th. If you file an extension, you'll have until October 15th. Most taxpayers will get their refunds within 3 weeks of submitting their return. The average tax refund last year was $2,500. And keep in mind, if you earned less than around $70,000, you can file your taxes for free. I have this website up here that you can use to file them through the IRS, or a lot of the free tax planning software also allows you to file for free through them. Keep in mind, file electronically, pair it with a direct deposit, you'll get your tax refund a lot quicker. And as we're finding out with the stimulus checks are based off of your tax filings from the prior year. So if you get your checks a lot faster if you have direct deposit. So again, encourages direct deposit. But also keep in mind, don't forget about FICA taxes, Social Security, and Medicare taxes. Those still exist, and those take a large portion of your income as well. Okay, I know we're running out of time here, or ran out of time here. Want to comment here on retirement account contribution limits. IRAs and 401ks haven't seen a change. So in 2021, you can still only contribute $6,000 to an IRA unless you're in the catch-up phase of 50 or over, which case you can contribute an additional $1,000. 401k, 19,500 is still the limit. Catch-up contribution still at $6,500. If you are lucky enough to have a 401k plan that allows after-tax contributions, you can now put up to a total of $58,000 into your 401k, which includes traditional, Roth, and after-tax contributions, as well as your employer contributions. HSAs in 2021 bumped up a little bit as well. What was that, $450? No, $50, excuse me, only $50, so not a whole lot, but increased HSA contributions as well. Again, we have the catch up for those 55 and older for retirement plan contributions. Income limits. So if you are concerned about the income limits are now a little bit higher in 2021, only $1,000, as I note here. But it's a higher break point in order for you to not qualify for the Roth IRA anymore, or if you contribute to a traditional IRA, to get that traditional IRA contribution deductible. So you can always remember, you can always contribute to a traditional IRA. It's just a question of, is it deductible against your taxes or not? That's the income limit there. Again, 401k, 403b, 457 plan, no income limit. You can always contribute traditional and Roth to those, assuming your employer offers those plans for you. This will probably be the last slide that I talk about, given that we're over time. But this might matter for a lot of individuals on this call, or for those individuals that are planning, or family members that are in these situations. The Secure Act of 2019 made a lot of changes regarding legacy planning. So historically, if you passed away and you gave your IRA to your children, they had what's called a stretch IRA provision, which means that they only had to take out a little bit from that IRA every single year until the day that they died. Now that's changed. For those that have passed away after 2020, so January 1st, 2020, there's no stretch provision. So if you pass away now and you give money to your children, they now have 10 years before they have to take all that money out of their IRA. So not advantageous for legacy planning. However, the Secure Act increased the age of required minimum distributions from 70.5 to 72. So you can push off your RMDs till 72 now instead of 70.5. You can now contribute to an IRA. There's no age limit for that anymore. And change things about your 401k if you're a long-time part-time employee. So large changes for those that have recently passed away, or if you're legacy planning. No longer extremely advantageous because there's no longer that stretch IRA provision. However, remember, you can still give up to $15,000 for free to somebody else. So the recommendation for people that think that they're going to hit the estate tax limit, or if they don't love the new IRA rules, give your money away while you're still alive. You can give $15,000 away for free to somebody else. If you give over $15,000, then it goes against your estate tax. But if you're a husband and wife, you each can give $15,000 to somebody, so that's $30,000 you can give as a couple to somebody else. I'm just going to quickly flip through the rest of this slide deck. Talks a little bit about 401k plans, Roth versus traditional, additional rules, as well as when you should consider Roth versus traditional. So if you think some of this information will be beneficial to you, reach out. We'll share this presentation with you. A lot of great information here, as well as my contact information. I know I talk fast. I know I talk fast on this 30-minute phone call. There's a lot that I wanted to connect and communicate with you all, so apologies for that. But again, this presentation is here. We recorded this presentation, and I think we'll put it on our YouTube page, Connor. So you have access to this again if you wish to. And again, thank you all for joining this talk. Hope it was beneficial for you. Connor?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Decker. I know I got a lot out of that listening in for sure, and I hope everybody else did too. Yeah, so if you are interested in receiving the PDF version of this presentation that was given today, feel free to shoot me an email. I wrote down my email in the chat section of this meeting, so feel free to copy paste that, shoot me an email, we'll get that to you, as well as we'll make it available online. And as Dr. Decker said, we will make it available via online as well with the video version of Dr. Decker talking over some of the slides. So that'll do it for us today. If anybody, again, has any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to myself, Dr. Decker. I'm sure we'd be happy to help you. Have a good day, everybody.